The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom is a big deal for the franchise because it's finally the first mainline game where you get to play as Princess Zelda. Yes, despite her name being the dang title of the series, she's never had a mainline appearance in a Zelda game. But I have to say mainline because it's actually not the first game where you can play as Zelda. Not by a slingshot. Bad joke. Let's start at the beginning, with The Legend of Zelda in 1987. She had red hair back then. This would form the basis of Zelda's portrayal for years to come. Well, except for the red hair, which was brown in Zelda 2 and sort of a nice auburn in Link to the Past. But from the very start, she was a princess in need of rescuing, a damsel, if you will. Her royalty and story connection to Link were fleshed out and kept fairly consistent amongst the earlier games, but she was never promoted past the role of non-playable character. After 3 console entries and a completely Zelda-free Game Boy outing, Nintendo licensed the franchise for a triforce of games on the Philip CDI, the console with the best startup sound ever. These Zelda games are not good games, but they are interesting in a slow-motion train wreck kind of way. The first 2 were a pair of games based on the side-scrolling aberration Adventure of Link, the most maligned game in the franchise at this point. Studio Animation Magic rushed out Link the Faces of Evil and Zelda the Wand of Gamelon, and this time, the game with Zelda in the title is one where you could actually play as Zelda. You might have noticed her now iconic blonde hair, making these the first depiction of her modern hair color in a video game. But her golden locks technically first appeared in the Legend of Zelda Saturday morning cartoon.
Well, excuse me.
But Zelda's turn as the hero in Zawog wasn't all that special. In fact, she basically plays the same as Link does in The Faces of Evil, since the games were built on the same engine in order to save money. More on that in a bit. Zelda and Link both slash at enemies, complete quests, and encounter bizarre animated cutscenes.
Duke Onkled betrayed the king!
I know.
Strike the head of the portrait to enter Onkled's chamber.
Thanks.
While far from the quality of Nintendo's first-party entries, these games weren't universally shat upon at the time of their release. In fact, some critics commended the game's voiceovers, music, and even the animation.
This is illegal, you know.
To be fair, we wouldn't get such a voiceover-dense Zelda game until Breath of the Wild in 2016, but maybe that's for the better.
I wonder what happened to Link.
Oh, he was a bore anyway.
Stop looking at yourself.
What happened?
Perhaps the strangest of the 3 games for the CDI was Zelda's Adventure, where once again you played as Princess Zelda. Instead of an animated side-scroller based tangentially on Zelda 2 The Adventure of Link, ZA returned to the top-down style the franchise was typically known for, and combined it with the biggest trend of the mid-90s, full motion video. Not only were there filmed cutscenes featuring human actors, but the entire game uses a fusion of low-tech rotoscoping and stop-motion animation to create something that looks like Mortal Kombat if you made it in your backyard and filmed it from your roof for some reason.
What? Oh, I'm sorry, but the lodge is full. You are welcome to rest here before you head out into the Forest of Tarion.
To modern gamers, Zelda's Adventure looks like a dreadful experience, and those who try it today find the same sluggish controls and horrendous load times that plagued the game back in 1994. But it was still moderately well received in the enthusiast press at the time, with praise for its fully voiced characters and large, colorful game world. Today, Zelda's Adventure may well be the worst game in the franchise, but because it's also the rarest, a copy of it goes for around $1,500 on eBay. The more fascinating thing is honestly how these strange games got made at all. They're the fallout from Nintendo and Sony nearly joining forces in the 90s to make a Nintendo Station CD-based console together, before Nintendo suddenly backed out to go make a game console with Philips instead, only for the Big N to get cold feet again after they saw Sega CD's attachment bomb hard. And as a consolation prize for backing out of the deal, Nintendo let Philips make some games using their beloved characters.
This'll make a great omelet. Here!
Thanks.
Now, Philips couldn't care less about canon or character consistency in these games. For example, the currency is rubies instead of rupees. And in Zelda's Adventure, they changed the setting from Hyrule to a place named Tolmak for no reason. Oh wait, it's just Camelot spelled backwards. Oh. Rather than putting thought and care into the story, it appears the company tried to use the games as tech demos for the CDI's advanced technologies. Philips insisted the developers utilize all aspects the quasi-console had to offer, which is why the games have full motion video, CD quality music, and high-resolution graphics, to the detriment of basically everything else. The developers had to contend with the fact that the CDI wasn't primarily made for video games, which led to fighting over the little bit of RAM the console had left over for stuff like gameplay. The budgets were also very limited and development short, so corners had to be cut. This is why most of the actors in Zelda's Adventure are just people from around the developer's office. The Zelda in the opening cutscene is the office receptionist. It's also why Wand of Gamelon's animated cutscenes ended up being the first case of Russian outsourcing by an American company after the recent fall of the Berlin Wall. So if you actually like this animation, you can find a lot of similar and interesting Soviet cartoons on the net.
Послушай, добрый человек.
Now, whether it was the fault of these games or not, we wouldn't get another chance to play as Zelda for a good long while. But the next time she appeared, she finally got a role that wasn't simply the damsel in distress. In the seminal Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time, Zelda assumes the alter ego of Sheik, a masked ninja who assists Link throughout his journey, with the princess only revealing her identity at the end of the game. Sheik's masculine presentation was likely intended by Nintendo to make this reveal more surprising, but it also opened up Zelda's character to queer readings, like this blog by Christopher Bautista. I highly recommend you go read in full. In addition to being a deeply personal story of Christopher's trans experience, the blog is a fascinating interpretation of Zelda's own journey in the game. The idea that living as Sheik for 7 years in the game's time-jumping story might have been a chance for the tomboy Zelda to live out a masculine identity that being a royal princess may have prevented. Despite, or because of, fan discussions of Sheik, Nintendo felt it necessary in 2014 to give a supposedly definitive answer that Sheik is a woman, simply Zelda in a different outfit. Now, people wear clothes for all sorts of reasons. Sometimes it is a critical part of their gender expression. For others, they had a budget for their video and it's fun to wear a dress. And cross-dressing is a part of this franchise, even if it doesn't always think too deeply about it. Sometimes Link wears feminine clothing as a disguise, or because the player just wants to see him in a cute little blouse.
It's that backless dress that Link gets. I know I'm not the only one who has taken notice of it.
It's just not as simple as Nintendo might want it to be, and certainly doesn't change queer readings of Sheik. Aside from the gender dynamics going on with Sheik, it's important to note that as a character, Sheik isn't simply Zelda in a different outfit. Sheik is a chance for Zelda to be a hyper-competent, badass ninja guide, staying one step ahead of Ganondorf while protecting Hyrule, popping up to help direct the more novice Link to the next objective or tool. Unfortunately, this exciting and mysterious new dimension of Zelda wouldn't make it to the end of the game, much less the next generation of Zelda games. With little to no part for her or Sheik to play in Majora's Mask, either of the Oracle games, or Four Swords. But players would finally get another chance to play not only as Zelda, but also her alter ego 2 in Super Smash Bros. Melee, released on the GameCube in 2001. Though it was, finally, a chance to play as Sheik, Nintendo insists the game isn't canonical. Whatever, they can't stop me from believing Star Fox is canonically Sheik's friend. In the massively popular multiplayer brawler, Zelda could transform into Sheik mid-combat, granting the player an entirely different set of abilities, something no other character could do. Unfortunately, after a quick poll of the Smash Bros. Fans on our staff, I once again have to report that Nintendo did Zelda dirty. Zelda is a bottom tier in every game she is in. Zelda is low tier. Sheik is like whatever, not at the bottom, but pretty close. Sheik is great in Melee, A tier, mid-tier in Brawl, great in Smash 4, A, and mid-tier in Ultimate. So, to review, Zelda is pretty much an unplayably bad character, and Sheik is either good or mediocre. The legend, indeed. The rest of the aughts ain't much better for Zelda. Was she also hot in this thing? Because this is making me sweat a lot. I'm gonna switch back into Link. I am gonna give up the Unity bonus for the armor, but I really like the pauldrons. Zelda does get another new adventurous alter ego in The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker as the fiery pint-sized pirate Tetra, only for Tetra to once again be relegated to the role of damsel in distress in Wind Waker's later acts and the follow-up, Phantom Hourglass. Over the next few years, Zelda is petrified, possessed, and split apart from her corporeal body. Actually, that last one is another opportunity for her to be a playable character. Sort of. In Spirit Tracks, Zelda's ghostly form allows her to possess other characters, meaning she's present for much more of the game than is typical for the franchise, but she's effectively a tool to be used by Link in his quest. The saddest part about this era of Zelda is that we could have had it so much better if Retro Studios had been able to make their Sheik game. Sounds amazing, right? The developers behind the Metroid Prime series making an action RPG set in the grim-dark bad ending from Ocarina of Time? And you get to play as Zelda disguised as the magic ninja Sheik on Nintendo's blockbuster motion-controlled Wii console? Unfortunately, most of the speculation about that non-game wasn't even true, and the still limited amount of information about it has since swirled together with a ton of hard-to-verify rumors and leaks.
We never worked on anything that could be called a traditional Zelda.
This spin-off only ever made it to pre-production, as Retro was still quite busy with the Metroid Prime franchise, though there is some cool concept art floating around. What little we do know about the gameplay makes it seem like a Wii tech demo more than anything else. In this video by Did You Know Gaming, former Retro Studios programmer Paul Tezor compared the game to simplified whack-a-mole, where players would use the Wiimote sword to slash at wolves, a la Link's crossbow training. Though the project was shelved in 2008 and never progressed very far, some of the ideas behind it found their way into the franchise anyway. The next mainline Zelda game, Skyward Sword, takes a similar approach to the Master Sword's creation story, with another character swapped in for the last male Sheikah. Zelda, for her part, is still not playable, but does make a departure from her typical backstory. She's not a princess this time. Technically, that's because the game takes place before the Kingdom of Hyrule existed, and she still gets kidnapped and imprisoned a whole lot, but at least by the end she gets to be the reincarnation of a god. Good for her. After 2 decades of toiling as everything from a damsel in distress to a low-tier fighting game character to the star of not one but 2 absolutely abysmal spin-off games, Zelda finally, sorta, kinda, gets her moment in 2014 with Hyrule Warriors. In this Koei Tecmo-developed fusion of Zelda and Dynasty Warriors, players smash through wave after wave of enemies, and that's about it. The non-canonical multiverse story dips into the lore of several Zelda games, and it's notable for giving players the chance to play as long-requested franchise favorites like Tingle. Oh, and also Zelda, Tetra, and Sheik. A few years later, Nintendo would sanction a developer to create another Zelda-centric spin-off game, but instead of focusing on combat, this one would be about the music. In Cadence of Hyrule, Crypt of the Necrodancer, featuring The Legend of Zelda. Yes, that's the full official title. Players could choose from multiple franchise characters, each with a unique playstyle for the rhythm-based gameplay. Zelda was present, but unfortunately, Sheik was not. Oh yeah, there was also that other game. What was it called? Oh right, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. As amazingly, stupendously incredible as this game was, for the fantastic Zelda fit, for her more in-depth character portrayal, for Patricia Somerset's amazing VO performance,
I thought I made it clear that I'm not in need of an escort. It seems I'm the only one with a mind of my own.
Despite all of that, it still wasn't a game where players got to be Zelda.
Don't you see? There's nothing more I can do.
And though we may forget, a lot of people thought this might be the mainline game where it finally happened. After all, this was the era of Aloy and Fimshep and trailers teasing women co-stars becoming the stars. There were rumors about letting players choose between a boy or girl character in the next Zelda game, but eventually it was confirmed that Link would be the main character, though with an intentionally more androgynous design, according to producer Eiji Aonuma, who went into great detail with Time magazine about his thoughts on Link's gender presentation, not only in this game, but in previous entries. Which is interesting, but this video is about playing as Zelda. or rather, not playing as Zelda, because apparently that is critical to Link's job security. This was the clunky way that Aonuma answered the question, why can't we play as Zelda?
Please, just tell me. What is it? What's wrong with me?
In his words, if we have a Princess Zelda as the main character who fights, then what is Link going to do? Taking into account that, and also the idea of the balance of the Triforce, we thought it best to come back to this original makeup. Now, at first I thought Aonuma was throwing shade on Link's lack of hobbies, but after reading this stellar article by Max Nichols over on Zelda Universe, I think this quote might be getting a little garbled in translation. What Aonuma's talking about here is something core to the franchise going all the way back to the NES, which is the clarity of Link's character, both in design and how he affects the world around him. And simply put, that character is a little guy with a sword. I know this is not the Master Sword. I got the Adventure Time sword at a Ren fair. I used up all the budget on the dress. If you take that special sword and give it to another character, you're muddling Link's identity a little bit. This was especially on the radar for the developers of Breath of the Wild, which was already taking some pretty big detours from the standard Zelda formula with its emphasis on physics-based gameplay. Aonuma also brings up the Triforce because in canon, Link, Zelda, and Ganon represent its three different aspects: courage, wisdom, and power. It's not like the lore of the franchise hasn't been messed with from time to time, but the Triforce is pretty important, and I can understand Aonuma wanting to preserve its balance by keeping these three characters distinct. And anyway, it was certainly a better answer than Miyamoto's, who was asked in 2017 about the possibility of a game featuring a playable Zelda. He responded by confirming three things. 1, that Nintendo really had considered making a Sheik game. 2, a game starring Zelda wasn't literally impossible. Cool, thanks. But 3, Link would continue to be the star of mainline games for the foreseeable future because Link is the hero, and that won't change. For the rest, we'll have to be patient and see what happens. Patient gamers got a little treat just 2 years later with Hyrule Warriors: Age of Calamity. This 2019 sequel to Hyrule Warriors refines the gameplay from the first entry and places the story 100 years before the events of Breath of the Wild, when Zelda was leading the charge against Calamity Ganon. And if you think that might mean this spin-off game is a fully canonical part of the Zelda franchise, well, you'd be wrong. Haven't you been watching this video? But it's still stupid fun, and Zelda gets to be a badass without the need to transform into a ninja first. And her centrality to the game made fans hopeful for something more. And what's this? Another mainline Zelda game coming soon? And it's a direct sequel to Breath of the Wild? And Nintendo's teasing images of Zelda holding a Sheikah slate like some sort of main character. And the first trailer seems to show Link succumbing to a curse, one that could potentially put him out of commission, thus allowing a wise and noble warrior of light to take his place. No, it's just Link again? Cool.
I'm surprised to hear you say such a thing. That is quite out of character for the Zelda I know.
Tears of the Kingdom, like Breath of the Wild, allows Zelda a more multi-dimensional character than almost anywhere else in the franchise, but she's still there as a supporting character in the player's story. She's not meant to have agency. That is reserved for Link, aka the player. Until now. The Legend of Zelda: Echoes of Wisdom is the first mainline Zelda game to canonically feature Zelda as the main player character. Suck it, Miyamoto! I'm so sorry, Miyamoto-san. What I meant to say is, it looks like they're taking the Aonuma approach to putting Zelda in the main character slot. At first, the gameplay looks like an updated spin on the franchise's classic overhead perspective with the charming art style of the Link's Awakening remaster. Pretty quickly, Link is the one getting damseled, leaving the role of hero to Zelda. But she isn't just Link with a different outfit. Her central power is creating echoes of objects to traverse the environment, solve puzzles, and fight off enemies. It's such a powerful and creative ability that using a sword becomes a mere side power, where Zelda literally dons Link's outfit, but just for a brief time. This isn't a game where swords are the focus, because that's Link's identity. By letting Zelda's wisdom and the power of creativity take the forefront, I'm hopeful she will get a chance to forge her own unique identity. even with the shadow of Link's sword obsession hanging around. How Echoes of Wisdom's story fits into the franchise's canonical timelines remains to be seen, but for now, let's just be thankful it's canonical at all. It could be so much worse.
Why'd you do that?
I just saved you from Ganon.
You did not.
They're the fallout from Nintendo and Sweeney.
This looks so good. You look like a Viking.
Pauldron check. Pauldron check. Can I get a pauldron check?
Pauldron check.
I once again have to report that Nintelda.
Oh no, your ear.
Oh no, my ear.
Your ear.